Chapter 17, Interrogation. Soon after Liang Weiping left, Father returned to his work on the propaganda team, and I went back to school to begin the new semester. My sister's stories had influenced me, and I resolved to improve my relationship with the peasant children. This was relatively easy to do, for I understood them very well. I knew they were more afraid of ghosts than anything else, and I used to impress them by nonchalantly visiting places they believed haunted. My classmates were already a little afraid of me because of my height and toughness. Now they began to see me as some kind of hero. What really kept me out of fights was the discovery of the boarded-up storeroom. It was a flat-roofed building near the basketball court, and an idle's moment investigation through the cracks in the door revealed that it was full of books, probably from the pre-Cultural Revolution school library. I hadn't read a good book since the Red Guards started training more than 4 years earlier, and my heart pounded. I quickly organized my handful of best friends, now including 2 peasant boys, and swore them to secrecy. Late that night, we pried off a few boards and climbed in. The arid dust and mildew irritated our throats, and spider webs were everywhere. The books lay in broken piles, and the yellow paper bindings were sticky to the touch. But I felt as though we had entered paradise. Someone had a flashlight, and we passed it about with shaking hands as we made our selections. We rationed ourselves as we did when we stole sweet potatoes, for fear of being discovered. I chose A History of Europe and translations of Hegel's Dialects and Flaubert's Madame Bovary. We replaced the words carefully when we left. It seemed that there would be no end to our secret pleasures. My life changed completely. I read with a passion I had felt for nothing else, keeping a diary about everything. The world of the imagination opened to me. I had new dreams and ambitions. My fellow thieves and I held discussions on literature, and even began to write poetry, meeting on the windy river banks but never feeling cold. We were a small literary society of 15-year-olds. One day a classmate, I never found out who, took one of my poems from my desk and turned it into a political cadre. It was a pessimistic poem about my road of life leading nowhere. I was publicly criticized, and dissatisfied with reality was written in my file. Even that didn't quell my literary fervor. I simply began to turn it outwards, writing letters to faraway friends and family like little Lee, who was still in Changsha because his parents had not been liberated from the study class. I developed quite an active correspondence, receiving answers to all my letters except those to Po Ming. I imagine he must be too busy making revolution to write. Then one Saturday morning, classes were canceled for a special school-wide meeting. New slogans were up in the big classrooms, all of them dealing with class struggle, so we knew something important was in the air. The political work group was the section of the school's revolutionary committee with real power, and Liu Gorong, a graduate of the Hunan Teachers College's politics department, was the head of it. This was his meeting, and he strolled to the podium as if girding himself for a performance. It was a short meeting, but an exciting one. Liu's gold fillings sparkled in his expressive mouth, and a fine spray of saliva rained onto the first row at emphatic moments. A new movement was on, he told us, to round up the counter-revolutionaries, May 16th conspirators. This nationwide secret organization has tried to attack our beloved Premier Zhou Enlai by sabotaging diplomatic relations with foreign countries, he bellowed. They have a manifesto and a plan. Their activities are vicious. They use their postal system to spread their pernicious conspiracy everywhere. Lo paused, and we held our breaths. Finally he hissed, "We have a May 16 conspirator right in this room." Pandemonium broke as we chattered excitedly and craned our heads about, hoping to identify the culprit. My mind raced down the list of my simple country teachers, but it seemed impossible that any of them should be involved in something so terrifying, so dangerous. Lo continued, "After the meeting, the counter-revolutionary will come to my office and surrender. I will put up 5 locked boxes throughout the school so that those of you who think they have spotted other counter-revolutionary activities can put in their report. Don't worry, I'm the only person with the keys. No one will know about your suspicions but you and me." He flashed his golden smile. Meeting dismissed. In the classroom I held a whispered consultation with the members of my literary group, and we decided to disband and return the stolen books that evening. Other classmates were checking their desks to make sure nothing had been planted there. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Xu Deng, a member of the school's revolutionary committee. "Liang," he said, "Liu Gorong wants to see you." I hurried behind him, past my classmates' stairs, shame burning me. A direct confrontation with Liu Gorong was too terrible to contemplate. I couldn't imagine what I had done. The political work office held nothing but locked cabinets from floor to ceilings, the slogan on the walls, and some wooden chairs and a large desk. Liu sat behind this, smoking, a thick folder in front of him. He jerked his head towards an empty chair, and I sat down, trembling. Then he almost smiled. "Did you forget to bring your ears with you this morning? You wanted a personal invitation?" I flushed deeper in an agony of confusion. "Well, you could still confess your activities as a May 16 conspirator," said Liu, gesturing to a sheaf of blank papers, which I now noticed the heading Confessions in big black characters. My protests were useless. Liu shook his folder at me and claimed he knew everything, while I racked my brain for what the contents might be. Finally he stood up and said, "You won't be leaving here until you've confessed, so you might as well begin now. Someone will bring you your lunch." I heard the keys turn in the lock after him. That morning, the sound of my classmates' voices rang in the corridors, and I glued myself to the barred windows, hoping to catch a glimpse of a friend. I enumerated the possibilities over and over, rejecting them all. Could it be the books I had sent little Lee and Changsha, our literary group, the stolen sweet potatoes? At noon, Teacher Deng came with food, and he whispered kindly to me, "You better confess or heaven knows what will happen." The letter came from Peking Public Security Bureau. That explained it. Peng Ming must be in some kind of trouble. If I had come to the notice of Peking, things looked very bad for me indeed. But I recalled the content of my letter, and I felt a bit calmer. I had done nothing but speak of our old friendship and ask Peng Ming if he could send me some materials on the arts. He was, after all, a composer. Liu came back that afternoon to question me. His face was constantly changing, sometimes fierce, sometimes kind and smiling, until I felt numb and I wasn't really sure what was right anymore. On the one hand, he threatened me with jail. On the other, he promised I could join the Communist Youth League if I only admit to my crimes. "Your father came to the countryside with a black mark on his record, and before it was wiped clean, you gave him a counter-revolutionary son," Liu said. "Think of the glory for your family if you tell the party everything. Think how proud your father would be." At one point I mentioned Peng Ming's name. Liu lit up ecstatically. "Aha! You've confided the name of your counter-revolutionary contact to the party. That's wonderful." Then he seized a piece of paper and, consulting his watch, noted down the exact moment of my confession. And he looked at me expectantly. "Go on." I don't know how many times I explained the nature of my friendship with Peng Ming. I told Liu that we had been neighbors, and that he had taken me with him on a new long march. I explained I had helped out in Peking and that his sister and my sister were classmates, but I insisted I knew nothing about any May 16 conspiracy, nor that Peng Ming might have anything to do with counter-revolutionary activities. I didn't understand much of what was happening to me, but I thought I might as well die rather than confess something false that might be used against my friend. In the late afternoon, Liu opened up his folder and took out the letters I had written to Peking. I broke out in sweat then. I had never dreamed that the Public Security Bureau could be so thorough. "These letters were written in your own hand, right?" asked Liu. "Of course," I responded. I described again the nature of my friendship with Peng Ming and my reasons for writing the letter. Liu wasn't happy. "You're only a 15-year-old boy, and you dare take me for a 3-year-old child," he said, rising and approaching me threateningly. He seized me at the base of my neck and squeezed. "Confess your counter-revolutionary plot," he commanded. It hurt so much I couldn't control my tears. "I've never heard of any May 16th conspiracy," I sobbed. "I've told you everything I know." And so it went on in circles. They made me sleep there on the desk that night, and the next, and the next. Will came to question me every afternoon, sometimes hitting me, sometimes flattering me, and trying to bribe me with political favors. Teacher Deng brought me my meals, and was kind to me with cigarettes and information. I think what hurt me the most during this time was the way my friends betrayed me. Every time Liu came in, he had new evidence in his hand, reports pushed into the lock boxes by people I had trusted the most. The people I had defended in my fights turned me in. The people whom I had stolen food. My literary friends told of our book thefts and our poetry meetings. My homeroom teacher wrote about my bad thoughts. And when I called out the window to my brown-headed friend Lil Wu, he looked frightened and hurried away. Every day I traced out the history of my relationship with Peng, and the papers marked confessions. Every day Will took them away, muttering, "Another crime." It was Teacher Deng who gave me the strength not to confess a lie. He explained that the letter from the Peking Security Bureau had asked only that I be investigated, not that I be arrested. Still, I knew that Liu would have me arrested if he could. That would be a great revolutionary glory if he could ferret out a big counter-revolutionary in his little country school. A great boost for his career. So every night I cried, torn between the desire not to hurt Peng Ming and the desire to protect father from yet another disgrace. On the 5th day, Liu didn't come until late in the day. He had a plainclothes public security officer with him. "This is your last chance," he announced with satisfaction. "If you don't confess today, tomorrow you'll go to jail." Before my eyes, he went to a cabinet, unlocked it, and handed my file over to the officer. That night, as I lay on my desk, I had no tears left. I had lived 15 years, but I had no desire to live even one more. I had been the victim of political movements since the age of 3. First through my mother, then through my father, and now through an absurd coincidence in my own affair. Society hated me. It turned me into an outcast and a thief. My stepmother disliked me, and my father was a broken man. I even hated him for what he had done to our family. I imagined the next day I would be brought to jail as a criminal, paraded through the streets as the peasants shout, "Down with the counter-revolutionary." My friends would be among them, throwing rocks and sticks and laughing at my shame, glad that now the country would be that much more secure than it had been before the criminal's arrest. Perhaps first there would be a public criticism meeting, a beating, a humiliation. The dusty dark light bulb hanging several yards above me was still visible in the night. Suddenly I realized that I could die. I could unscrew the light bulb, put my hand there where the current flowed, and I would be dead. I would never again be tormented by the memories of my mother's humiliated and accepting face, as father cursed her for betraying the party's faith in her, of my nice swollen cheeks as she lay in her black coffin, of father kneeling before his burning books, praising the party, of Liang Fan's feces-covered shoes as she came home to write her thought reports. I should never again hear the words, "stinking intellectual son," or lie on my stomach in the sweet potato fields. My throat wouldn't hurt any more where Liu had squeezed it. I was amazed at the simplicity of it all. The thought came quickly, and I acted quickly. Standing on the table, I reached the light bulb easily, and unscrewed it smoothly into my hand. It was a lonely action, and I suddenly felt angry that it should be so. There should have been someone to help me do it, or someone to urge me not to do it. I reflected bitterly that after my death, the mob would stone my body just as it would if I were alive. The difference being that now they would say that the counter-revolutionary had killed himself because of his crime. I would never be able to explain to father that I wasn't guilty, and I remembered his old sad face, weeping, telling himself to be patient and tolerant, that someday his questions would be made clear. Another thought struck me with equal force. If I died, Peng Ming's enemies would invent my confession and use it against him, as if I penned it with my own hand. The desire to live came strong then, stronger than the desire to die. I remember father excitedly recording the peasant boy's folk song by torchlight, still a man of letters, even in the midst of great trouble. I thought of mother and Waipo waiting for me in Changsha, and Liang Weiping sharing her rice baba among the peasants. The hoodlums had cared for me so well in the streets, and teacher Luo had forgiven me so graciously for the caricatures I had drawn of him. There was so much good in this crazy world, but so much more that was impossible to understand. Why should two good people like my parents be forced to divorce each other? Why should Liang Fang raise a machine gun against her fellow teenagers? Why did the peasants fear the cadres so terribly if they were representatives of our great Communist Party? Why were people so determined to make me and Peng Ming look like counter-revolutionaries when we wanted only to make a contribution to our country? Why had revolution given us all so little when we had sacrificed everything for it? That night I resolved that I would seek the answers to these questions. If I was to live, it would no longer be numbly and aimlessly. I would live bravely. I would not be like father, denying facts and fooling himself, nor like pockmarked Lil, disillusioned and cynical. I would go to prison, but I would study so that I could understand why my country had produced such terrible tragedies. The next morning Lil arrived, but he was there alone. "You can go," he said dourly. It was no wonder I believed in fate. My life was just that crazy. I thought I might be dreaming again, but I didn't want to question my luck. I stumbled out, blinking in the bright light. Later I learned that the Central Committee in Peking had issued a document saying there were too many people too many people were being arrested on May 16 conspiracy charges, and that in fact the conspiracy was not so big. Lo had to let me go. Still, the incident was by no means easily forgotten. My classmates shunned me, and Lo had his ways of finding revenge. In my file he wrote, corresponded with a person with serious political questions, and my class finished lower middle school that spring. I was the only one not allowed to proceed to upper middle school. The reason? Complicated thought.